Over 17 million views on Twitter. Breaking, MIT just completed the first brain scan study of ChatGPT users, and the results are terrifying. Not really. Turns out AI isn't making us more productive, it's making us cognitively bankrupt. Here's what 4 months of data revealed. Hint, we've been measuring productivity all wrong. In my opinion, the results here fit into one of two categories. One, obviously wrong, or two, obviously true, but trivial. The paper gets 3 groups of 18 people: the LLM group, the search engine group, and the brain-only group. And these people are asked to write 1 essay a month for 4 months using their tool. The LLM group can use ChatGPT 4.0, the search engine group can use Google, and the brain-only group just has to use their brain. I'm not going to talk about the search engine group anymore because it does the same as the brain-only group, and who cares? It's not really relevant. So these groups are writing 1 SAT-style essay prompt a month, about 20 minutes of writing. They're hooked up to an EEG to measure their brain activity while they do it. And after writing their essay, they're interviewed and asked some questions. Back to our Twitter thread, our tweeter points out 83% of ChatGPT users couldn't quote from essays they wrote minutes earlier. Let that sink in. You write something, hit save, and your brain has already forgotten it because ChatGPT did the thinking. Duh. If you have ChatGPT write an essay for you, of course you're not going to be able to recall a quote from the essay that ChatGPT wrote because you didn't write it. You probably didn't read it. So this graph is just showing us that over 80% of ChatGPT users couldn't recall a quote from the essay that they wrote with ChatGPT, whereas the people using the search engine or their brain mostly, obviously, could recall quotes from the essays that they actually wrote. Notice that this is the percentage of participants who could not recall a quote only in session 1. In subsequent sessions, when they knew that they were going to be asked to recall a quote, they did better. So unlike session 1, where the quote in question might have caught the participants off guard as they heard it for the first time, in this session, most participants from all the groups indicated to be able to provide a quote from their essay. Brain-only group reported perfect quoting ability, 18 out of 18, with no participants indicating difficulty in doing so. Meanwhile, the LLM and search engine groups, they had 2 out of 18 participants who said they would have difficulty quoting something from the essay that they just wrote. I'd put that in the obviously true but trivial category. Although, if you wrote an essay with ChatGPT but didn't bother to read that essay, you're not going to be able to quote from it. Wow, let that sink in. So, of course, if you know the quote question is coming, you'll be able to handle it if you want to. Next tweet says, brain scans revealed the damage. Neural connections collapsed from 79 to just 42. That's a 47% reduction in brain connectivity. If your computer lost half its processing power, you'd call it broken. That's what happened to ChatGPT users' brains. This is the part of the paper where it says the 79 connections compared to only 42 for the LLM group. And in context, they're talking about using the EEG to measure brain activity for the first 3 sessions when users are writing these essays. So an EEG is measuring brain activity. It's not measuring the brain structure. It's not measuring structural changes in your brain. It's measuring what your brain is doing. This is basically telling us that the people who are actually writing the essay in the brain-only group have more brain activity than the people who are not writing the essay in the LLM group. Whoa, my brain is broken. It lost half its processing power. Right? That's not what's happening. You're doing a cognitively simple task. You're copying and pasting an answer from ChatGPT. And so your brain is less active than if you were doing a more cognitively demanding task, like actually writing an essay yourself. Teachers didn't know which essays used AI, but they could feel something was wrong. Soulless, empty with regard to content, close to perfect language while failing to give personal insights, the human brain can detect cognitive debt even when it can't name it. And then look at this quote here that's being excerpted. They're talking about English teachers who are grading the AI essays. They say it made the use of AI in the writing process rather obvious, or that some of these obviously AI-generated essays. Like, what do you mean the teachers didn't know which essays were using AI? In the paper, they do have 2 English teachers grade all of the essays, but they don't compare the grades for the two groups. They don't say LLM writers were better or worse in terms of grades. They don't talk about the percentage accuracy that the English teachers identified LLM generated essays. And those strike me as really big and odd gaps. Here's the terrifying part. When researchers forced ChatGPT users to write without AI, they performed worse than people who never used AI at all. It's not just dependency, it's cognitive atrophy, like a muscle that's forgotten how to work. Okay, so this is where I think we get to obviously wrong. That really can't be true. My reasoning is their participants, 54 participants, are almost all current college students. A couple of them are random software engineers they found, or like research assistants or something. But these are highly educated people. And so they would have written, who knows how many, hundreds, 1,000 SAT-style essay prompts across their educational career. And the idea that writing one essay a month for 3 months is going to meaningfully change anything about your brain, given this background, to me, that just seems like it's obviously wrong. And the people who use ChatGPT are essentially not writing the essay. If you ask ChatGPT to write an essay for you, you're not writing that, right? That's obvious. So the only difference between the LLM group and the brain group is that the brain group has written 3 additional essays over a period of 3 months. So I think it's just obviously true that there's no brain difference between them. Also, the students are using ChatGPT anyway in both groups. So they ask, how often did the participants use ChatGPT? Most people replied, no response. Seems like you probably should have gotten a response from your participants. This question seems really important. But setting no response aside, we can see that daily or 2 to 3 times a week are much more common than from time to time or not at all. So the idea that using ChatGPT to write an essay for you once a month for 3 months is going to meaningfully change your brain when people are frequently or daily using ChatGPT anyway, again, it's just like, it's obviously not correct. And the paper doesn't really say this. It just says in the final session, the 4th session, they reverse things. And the group that had been using an LLM now has to use their brains, whereas the other group that was just using brains has to use an LLM, and they have to rewrite one of their previous essay responses. They just have some of the same measurements that the brain to LLM group had better recall or better quoting ability. They never really compare, say, the scores of the essay or the quality of the essay or anything like that. And they definitely don't say that it's causing measurable brain damage. That's not in the paper at all. In general, I kind of hate this paper. It's 136 pages long or something like that. It's very unnecessarily complicated. They have an EEG, they have their own fine-tuned AI grading model, they have human teachers jump in to grade some of the essays. And so there's a lot of complexity happening to investigate what are, in my view, very trivial questions. Like, of course your brain's not as active if you're copying and pasting from ChatGPT. Or of course you can't recall an essay that ChatGPT wrote as well as you can recall an essay that you wrote. So it's really complicated to get at these really trivial questions. And then the paper authors don't do things that would have been incredibly obvious. Like, okay, have the teachers grade each of the essays using a standardized rubric and then just compare average grades between the groups. That would have been useful to see. They kind of get at the scoring stuff. Like here, they've got a plot of how the teachers and their AI grader are scoring the different things. But it's obviously very difficult to read figures like this and figure out which group is getting a higher score. Or they do a similar thing here where it's like, the information that I want to know is in this plot, but I would have a hard time pulling the information out of this plot by looking at it. So yeah, it's an incredibly unnecessarily complicated paper. EEG, you don't need that at all. The fine-tuned AI grader, you don't need that at all. With a tiny sample size, just 18 students per group, and it's testing something that's implausible on its face. Would using ChatGPT to write an essay for you 3 times change your brain? Obviously not. And then the results are just presented in a really confusing or incomplete way. I don't like the paper. But thanks for your time.